Hey, welcome to Keight's Crafts. I'm Keight. Today I would like to share with you yet another card using the Sizzix Lunar Mask Die and Lawn Fawn's Duh-Nuh stamp set. Let's get started. Off camera, I've gone ahead and used the Sizzix Lunar Die mask to cut a stencil out of, I believe it was the Bristol Smooth cardstock, because ink blending and smooth cardstock, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing here, but I'm taking the new Distress Oxide ink in Uncharted Mariner and just tapping it into the holes to create some kind of texture. And then I'll do the same here with the Salty Ocean through the other holes. The reason why I'm doing this is because I wanted to make a shaker card, and I didn't really have any desired blue cardstock in my collection, so I decided to make my own. So once I'm done that, you can see the little holes are done, and now I'm going to go back into that stencil I created and darken around some of those holes with some Uncharted Mariner. Just to kind of create a little bit of dimension. Whether or not this is going to be watery looking, I wasn't sure, but the consensus basically was blue, light blue, dark blue, water, donut, some sharks. You get the picture. So I'm just kind of going back and forth with these two colors just to kind of create my underwater scene, and I will go around all the edges with the Salty Ocean. So I have this blue panel with all the holes cut out of it, and once I'm satisfied with that, I'll do a little bit of water splattering. So I've taken my little acrylic stamping block, spritzed a little bit of water, and I'm picking it up with a little tiny paintbrush and just spritzing it down. And because I still have not found my microfiber cloth, I am using paper towel in this one. So one day I'll find it if I don't buy a new one. I can't bring myself to buy a new one because as soon as I buy a new one, I'll end up finding it. And trust me, I've looked all over the place. So after I've taken the Fine Tech iridescent watercolors and done a little bit of splattering and let it dry, I'm going around the edges with some very thin score tape. I think this was like a 5mm. And I've already cut out a piece of acetate to the size of my card panel, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm taking this little thin bits of score tape and kind of filling in the gaps where the paper is in between the little holes, so I have it stuck down to the acetate and it's not really lifting up in the center. This was kind of tedious to do and kind of a pain in the butt to remember where I put all of the score tape. So eventually I get there and, I get it all taped down and everything's done and over with. But I think this probably took the most, was trying to make sure that they were all pressed down so that way when I picked them up with my pokey tool, I wasn't picking everything up. So once I've picked them all off with the pokey tool and all the release paper's gone, I'm going to take my sheet of acetate, dust it off first, and then I'm going to lay it over top of my panel. Best way I find to do is to hold on to the corners, stand above, and just kind of lay it over top like that. Make sure everything's mashed down. And because I want to be a little extra, I'm going over in with whatever's left over on my blue brush, which I believe was the Uncharted Mariner, and just kind of darkening up those edges a little bit. I didn't want any of the white to really show through, so I decided just to kind of go over everything. And now with the thinnest foam tape that I possibly could have in my stash, which I probably could have found thinner, but I didn't have thinner, I made sure to measure around the edges to make sure that that wouldn't be poking out any of the holes once you see it on the flip side. But I'm going to create a well with this, and we're going to make the shaker bit. So I'm just going around with some foam tape just to create my well, and then I'll go in where I put all those little strips of double-sided tape, and I'll put in little cut squares of double-sided foam tape. And you'll see here in a minute why. When you're doing a full panel shaker card like this and you don't have anything in the middle to support it, sometimes it'll sag down kind of thing, and you don't want it to smoosh. And I want to kind of keep the front panel's integrity, so I painstakingly cut all these little tiny squares, which, come to think of it, I actually had a sheet of little tiny foam squares in my stash, but I never think to use them because I'm always reaching for the rolls of the foam tape. So, hindsight is 20/20, right? Next time, remember the little square foam tape, and it probably could have saved me a mess of dealing with my scissors, sorry. A little bit tired, but using up what's left on that roll before I pitch it, then I will figure out where the last bit goes, and then I'll turn around and take all the release tape off. But first, I want to add a little bit more. So, once I'm satisfied with the placing of all the little tiny squares, we are going to add the shaker bits. So, here I have the Recollections microbeads. Now, every time I use these guys, I end up finding them everywhere. They are tiny and somehow make it all the way to the other side of the room. Now, this right here is some tulip glitter. I don't even know if Tulip makes glitter anymore. They're that company that made the fabric paint. I don't know, I think I bought this for a project back when my youngest sister was probably 8 years old, and well, she's now 23, so go figure. Hold on to glitter for that long. Probably could have used it more, but here I just want to make sure that all my holes line up when I adhere the back panel onto the shaker panel. So I've made sure that I was going to apply that properly, and now I'm just taking off all the little tiny bits of the release tape of the double-sided foam adhesive, adding some more glue to make sure that this stays adhered to keep all of the glitter inside of the panel. So once I'm satisfied with the amount of glue that I have added to this panel, I'm going to go in and add little dots to the little squares that I added in there, and then I will flip the panel over, line everything up, smoosh it down when I'm ready, and then I'll peel that up, and I have the front panel done. So next up, it's to adhere it to a card base. So I have this giant, fancy, wonderful roll of 40mm double-sided tape. I absolutely love this roll. Eventually, I'm going to use it to create my own little critter stickers, in a sense. I've seen it done before where you use a piece of double-sided adhesive sheet and you peel off one side of the release tape and put your paper on there, and then you stamp out your critters and you color them in, and then you cut out your critters with, you know, your dies, or your brother scan and cut, or you fussy cut them and you have your own stickers. So I want to try that at some point. Oh, here I have the, what do you call it? The Speech Bubbles by Lawn Fawn. And I'm just taking a pencil here, and I'm going around the edges of that, so I know where I want to stamp out my Duh-Nuh in River Rock ink. This is a Copic friendly ink also, and even though I'm not Copic coloring on this cutout, I am using it because it's the only nice gray that I had. I didn't want to stamp in Oxide inks because I wanted the boldness of the dye-based ink on my scrap piece of Bristol Smooth Cardstock. Bristol Smooth Cardstock. I didn't use Nina Solar White for this. I just used whatever I had left over in the Bristol Smooth. So you can see that I've got some shark images cut out of this particular piece of paper. That's because I cut out 4 sharks and ended up stamping them out in the River Rock ink and did some Copic coloring. I used the N4, N2, N1, and N0 and did that off camera because that would have made the video a lot longer. So what I've done here was I'd taken the jet black ink and I did the little Duh-Nuh stamp in black across the panel, and I didn't really like how it turned out. So what I went ahead and did is cut out another little speech bubble with the die, and then I cut it down using my little slide cutter, and now I'm going to stamp out that Duh-Nuh another couple of times in the black ink, and then I'm going to go over that center bit where I'd initially stamped it, just so that the Duh-Nuh can stand out a little bit better than than what it is with the background. So once I've got that down, I'm going to add some double-sided tape and line that up, make sure I like it. Now I'm going to peel off the back release tape, add a little bit of glue, and because I used the same die to cut it out, this is going to line up perfectly. So I'll be able to center that up nice, and you'll be able to see the sentiment a little bit better. So once I'm happy with that, I will move it on accident and have to reshuffle it to make sure that it looks nice and straight, and add the block again. So now that I have that done, I am going to take some more double-sided tape and I'm going to add that to the back. Now I wanted to use the double-sided tape with all these objects because I've got a lot of uneven ground that I'm dealing with and some acetate, and sometimes glue just does not hold well to acetate, so I'm doubling up on this adhesive so that way I get everything that'll stick down, and it'll stick down for a long while. So once I'm happy with that placement, I will also glue down the sharks as well, use some more tape and some glue, and we'll tape all that together. So once I am happy with where everything is placed and I'm laying down the final little shark, I am going to mash that down, set that off to the side, throw a little bit of a block on it, and I'm going to stamp out the inside. So I've got the Your Jawsome stamp right here, and I'm just going to hold that down a little bit, and I think I'm happy with that. I used the river rock ink for that as well. And because I had those 2 extra sharks that I colored that I wasn't sure what I was going to do with, I am just going to add them inside of the card. So it'll say, "You are Jawsome," and you got these 2 cute little sharks, and there you have it, my finished shaker card. Duh-Nuh, Duh-Nuh, Duh-Nuh. You are Jawsome! Thank you for watching. So there's my card. Thanks for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. So if you've enjoyed today's content or found it helpful, please give this video a like. I also welcome you to subscribe, as I post weekly. Here's another video I think you might enjoy. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Take care.